with Abbe Bjorklund, the Director of Engineering and Utilities at Dartmouth College. Abbe, thank you so much for taking time out of your hectic schedule to talk with me before the Women Who Build Summit. It's getting close, and I want to take this chance to give people a little idea about you and what you find is so important and engaging about resilience and sustainability. And yeah, let's go. So can you give a brief introduction of yourself?
Sure. So I have been in the industry for over 30 years, most of it as a consulting engineer in the Boston area. And about 7 years ago, I decided to be an owner. And I came here to Dartmouth as the Director of Engineering and Utilities and kind of oversee the engineering design for our existing buildings and our new buildings and our utility systems and our energy procurement and sustainability planning. How are we going to meet our greenhouse gas reduction goals through improvements to our energy using systems?
That sounds like a big bunch of hard stuff.
Well, I should say I'm not doing it all myself. I have an awesome team of people in my engineering and utilities group, and I'm working with my other colleagues in planning and construction, project management, facilities. So we're a really great team here working together.
So that's great. I'm really pleased to be able to meet you and talk about this. I'm curious how your experiences as a consulting engineer have helped you in this role as an owner. Like, what is it that you're so glad you learned and gained from that experience to transfer over to the owner side?
Well, I've worked throughout my career on really with kind of an energy and sustainability focus, whether it be designing new buildings or retrofits to existing buildings or doing like master planning for utility systems and design of new utility systems, electricity and thermal generation. So it's kind of all, I used to work as a consultant for institutions like Dartmouth, developing those plans, doing those designs and implementing those projects. So I feel like I brought all of that knowledge and experience from working on a lot of different facilities, and now I'm applying it here at Dartmouth. And it's, kind of fun being the owner, and I totally understand where my consultants are coming from because I used to be on their side of the table. And so it's fun. It's a fun change to go from the consulting side to the owner side for me.
Now that you're in the owner universe, is there something you wished all consultants knew that maybe you didn't know before you were on the owner side? I can tell the list is long.
Well, they should, I mean, should be obvious, but communicate, keep your client informed on what's going on and what you're doing. And, the more communication, the better, especially if you are getting to be behind schedule and over budget on your scope of work. I mean, it's kind of obvious, but it's amazing to me how many consultants don't follow those basic rules of engagement.
My opinion, I think that people are afraid of being the bearer of bad news. And so that's kind of hampers them a little bit, like waiting too long, thinking you can solve it before it's a big issue. Do you find that that's true or false?
Yeah, that could be true, but usually the sooner you let them know, the better. And then maybe you can come back to them with some good news saying, hey, it's not as bad as I thought it might be, and we're ready to go.
So that's great advice and feedback for this particular audience, because the Construction Institute has a very wide and deep demographic. We have people from every tenure, right out of college, and even some before they graduate, all the way up through, retirees are a part of the Construction Institute. And then from pretty much every walk of the AEC industry, we've got owners, architects, engineers, construction managers. We've got vendors and suppliers too. We have some of the companies that manufacture the tools and the lifts that are going to be there, and trades. So it's that particular piece of feedback is important for everybody across the whole chain. And I think that the earlier you can grasp how important that is in your career, the better off you are, right?
Yeah.
Being able to communicate well and often and succinctly. I'm still working on succinct.
And honestly.
Yes, honest, communicate with honesty and integrity as well. So you have been in this space with sustainability and green for a long time. You said 30 years, right?
Yeah.
And it's come a long way, but has it come as far as you would think that it would have come looking 30 years ago?
Well, I don't know. Yes and no. Certainly, I my particular passion in my career is energy, sustainability, trying to mitigate climate change and greenhouse gas reduction. And it seems like there have been the industry overall, I think, has gotten a lot more sustainable. I just wish that it was happening faster, or it had happened faster than it has. And the other thing is, with respect to women in the industry, for engineering, I don't think there are really many more women, in engineering school than there were 30 years ago, when I graduated. On average, there are some schools, in fact, here at Dartmouth, 50% of the engineering graduates are women, and that's really unusual. But I think, the average, in the whole country is like 20% or less. And, I do think that there are more women in construction than there used to be, and that is growing. But, we still have a lot, it's a male-dominated industry still, both construction and design. So we still have a long way to go.
The nice thing about a long way to go is that we still have the future to write, right? It hasn't been invented yet. So there's a lot of room for innovation and out of the box thinking. Why do you think it's taking so long to get a handle on this sustainability issues and carbon emissions and all of that picture? Why is it taking longer than you might hope?
Well, I think, on the design and construction side, it takes time and money. We have a lot of, existing facilities that are, have been around for a long time. And to change the way those are designed is a big change. Like here at Dartmouth, as with many campuses, for example, all of our heating infrastructure is steam systems. We actually burn oil here to generate our heat, because we're not near any gas pipelines. And so that's where the bulk of our greenhouse gases are. And just the change that we're starting to implement now on our campus of going from using steam to generate heat to going to much more efficient, lower carbon options like heat pumps. That's a big change in the HVAC design and construction industry. And that industry doesn't change very quickly. So it takes time, I guess. But, you know, as far as the world overall, I think there's just, you know, people are ingrained with thinking that they can have whatever resources they want. And, you know, whether it be gas for their cars or, you know, flying in airplanes or, you know, buildings that are very inefficient, and to really change that way of thinking and living is a big lift, and people are resistant to change.
One of the things I found to be highly impactful for me were the photographs that were taken before the lockdowns from COVID and after, like the pollution from like in the Los Angeles basin before COVID, and then I don't know, a month, 5-6 weeks into the lockdown, and poof, gone, like sunny skies and all of that. And some of them were really crazy from, I think, was it Tokyo or maybe Hong Kong that I'm thinking of, where there were similar pictures taken before and after. And I hope to see those kinds of pictures again. Like, this is the kind of impact we can have if we just change how we do things. Like, I know that, you know, touching on remote work is a sore point for a lot of people, but if we look at the impact on the environment, just kind of changing it up, you know, what does a 4-day in office work week look like, or maybe even a 3-day in office work week look like for the environment? And how can we, you know, stay out of our old thinking and think in a new way that from just the environmental impact?
Yeah. Yeah, I think there are a lot of things like that COVID kind of forced us to change. And there's a lot of good that I think can come out of that. Like, you know, our meeting right now, you know, so many meetings that were always done in person. Now it's much more acceptable to meet remotely. So, you know, I've seen not only among my colleagues here at Dartmouth, most of our meetings are still remote, even if we're all sitting in our offices in the same building, or, you know, meetings with clients and, I mean, with consultants and contractors, you know, those are mostly remote now, you know, when they can be, and people are very selective about what do they do in person and expending the carbon to get there in person. So I think that is a good positive that hopefully will continue.
Well, I hope so, because it had such a huge impact, and so fast. It was almost like watching a sci-fi movie, because you wouldn't believe, I don't think anybody would have believed that the change would have been so incredibly quick. It was really jaw-dropping, and I haven't seen or heard anything about that since, you know, and now it's, you know, fast forward to where we are now, and I haven't heard that point being made a whole lot about the impact that it really has on the overall environment.
Mm.
Like my uneducated opinions being shared all over the place. I am not an expert like you in this space.
Yeah, no, I think that's a good observation. And so, like transportation, travel, when you think about a campus like Dartmouth, we have our emissions quantified in scope 1, 2, and 3. So people commuting to campus or, flying to conferences or wherever they go, other institutions, or having people come here in person, that is scope 3. And that's something that I think, is going to have increasingly more and more emphasis for institutions like Dartmouth and others in quantifying, what is that scope 3 emissions associated with our institution, and how can we reduce that.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, it's kind of looking for things to tweak or change that impact multiple points, right? Like I guess that's the bang for the buck argument is figuring out what can we change now with our current technology that will have the most bang for the buck, and so much of it is behavioral. But there's another piece of it that's technology, and I wonder how much of the technology that we think we need to have a large impact globally is actually available now. What are your thoughts on that?
I think there's a lot of technology that's available. And I do think that the industry is working really hard to keep improving technology and providing more incentives, or more, products to respond to incentives. I was just thinking about, one of the things that we've been researching a lot here is the Inflation Reduction Act that the US government passed last fall, which has huge potential monetary incentives throughout the construction industry to generate technologies like heat pumps and geothermal systems, solar thermal systems, photovoltaic systems, low carbon energy generation equipment, because owners like Dartmouth, if we buy those systems and install them, we get a incentive that could be, 30% or more of that cost. That's huge. And, the more comes in for, like, first of all, to get that 30%, you need to have prevailing wage labor install it. And, so that's really great for the construction industry. And then you get more incentive if it's manufactured in the US. So that's really good for our, industry. And another, lesson from COVID that we learned the hard way is, with COVID, we had borders shut down. People couldn't, cross the border into the US from Canada, for example, and we were buying, equipment there, or, we were looking for consultants from there to come to our campus, and that couldn't happen. And, dependence on manufacturing that's overseas got a lot more expensive and a lot more delayed. So, that's besides the, obvious advantage from a financial GDP point of view for the country to have things manufactured in the country. It's also, I think, a big advantage where, it's a lot easier for people to ship things because you're not looking at crossing borders, or for people to travel.
Yeah. Are those incentives in addition to like US GBC and lead points, or are they tied together?
So The lead is really a way of certifying that a facility is sustainably designed. You don't get any financial incentives to, have a lead facility. I think there are tax breaks that consultants can get for designing sustainable facilities, which are, basically a reduction in their tax liability. So that is a financial incentive um, on the design side.
Okay. So there might be some overlaps, such as like, the distance from which you procure your materials and equipment.
Right,
That's a part of it. And,
right.
brownfield versus greenfield and things like that. But I think
Well,
that,
and the embedded carbon associated with shipping things long distance. Yeah.
right, right. And I think once the building is up and running, lead becomes less because it's already been designed, it's already been constructed, and now we're into operation, right? Those end up kind of separating a little bit, don't they, after the construction is complete?
Well, actually, like lead for new construction is now requiring that you provide ongoing reporting of actual energy performance and water use, for example, of the facility after it's built. And there's also lead for existing buildings, which is a way to certify that existing buildings are operated sustainably.
Okay. Are those new, relatively new?
No, no, they've
No?
been, but they're always evolving and I mean, I think lead certification probably started, what, 15, 20 years ago. And,
I think I remember it as early as like 2004, but not much earlier than that.
yeah. And I think now, we're on lead version 4, it keeps changing.
Yeah. Okay. What is it that when you're mentoring someone new in construction, what is the thing you find yourself repeating?
Um, well, what I want to keep repeating is good job, good thinking, creative thinking. Like I think it's really important to give people positive feedback, um, in general when they're doing good work. So I don't know if that answers your question, but I guess, a general feedback thing that I would give for people who are kind of early in their career and trying to figure out what they want to do, or, if they're in school and haven't really started working, is follow your passion. What really motivates you? Try to steer what you're going to be spending most of your time on for the rest of your life into something that you're really passionate about.
That's such good advice. And it's easier for some people than others to be able to put a pin in that. Like, what is my passion? You pretty much opened with that, you're passionate about, it's right here in your bio: planning, designing, and operating facilities to reduce carbon emissions. Like, that's very succinct, it's very clear, and it's something that you can always point to. But it's not always easy for everybody to come up with, like, elocute it in that way. Well, how do you help people figure that out?
Um, I don't know. I think you really have to listen to yourself and what it is that excites you in your environment and think about it. And I think what sometimes happens is that people get steered into certain directions in their careers because of, what other people think they should do. And you need to listen to what your brain and your body and your heart is telling you, not listen to them.
Such a vast amount of expertise and experience. And I'm sure that people often want to just pick your brain and try to hone in on what it is that's made you so successful in your career. And I'm thinking about all of the, young women and men who are in construction who, when they, come to conferences, they want to meet new people, they want to get advice, they want to learn something new. And sometimes it's really hard to formulate a good question because it's kind of scary. And I'm just very curious as to what kinds of questions people ask you that are really great questions that you really want to answer, I guess. Like, I mean, so for example, if somebody comes up to me and says, "Hey, I'm having trouble with the dynamic on my team, and I need to really help this one person become more motivated. What do you say?" I'll go on all day, all day. You have any questions like that, and I'll be like, "Okay, let's go. Let's unearth this, peel the onion, let's bury it, like, get it going." And so that if somebody wants to talk to me, that those are the kinds of things. Or these systems are not working together, like business operating systems, and what can we do to get them better and more streamlined and more efficient? And I'm just like, okay, let's go, let's think about it. So I'm sure there are things like that when somebody comes and asks you this question, it just lights you on fire.
Mhm. Well, actually, like that same question is one that I do, deal with often. And I tell people what I think I said earlier, it's really important to give positive feedback honestly and often, but also really important to give constructive criticism as well. And if somebody does something that you are not happy with, that you think shouldn't be done, then you should call them on it and do it in a non-confrontational way, hopefully, so that they won't get defensive, but they will hear you and internalize what you're saying and learn from it and hopefully change their behavior.
Yeah. So when you think about this panel and your message to your audience, what do you really hope people walk away with and carry in their back pocket as they go about their lives and their professions? What do you want people to remember from the conference?
Well, I'm hoping they'll learn a few things that they didn't know. Hear some different perspectives. Our panel is going to be interesting because there are going to be a few owners and engineers like me, but there are some people who are, for example, from the electric utility industry or, utility supply industry. We're going to be talking pretty broadly about this is how do we green our buildings, green the grid, and what are some of the barriers and issues there. Resiliency is a big one for not only thermal systems, but very much for electrical systems as well. And so I think it's going to be really interesting. And I think also hopefully people will be inspired by, hey, here are these women who, have some great experience and are interesting, and you know, hopefully we'll set a positive example to them.
I think you're guaranteed to set a positive example for them. So my advice to anybody watching this before the conference is to come armed with lots of paper in your notebook and a pen, because you're going to learn a lot.
Yeah, I think so.
Excellent. Abby, thank you so much for taking the time to hang out with me for a little bit. I'm really excited about you joining the Women Who Build Summit for the first of many, many times, and the whole crew you're going to bring with you.
I'm looking forward to it. I've heard a lot of good things about the conference.
They're true.